yes, following comments accredited to the governor of Benue State, Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia'S, and the secretary to the government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, over the security situation.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it comes after the governor accused the SGF of not doing enough to highlight the recent killings of farmers by headmen in Benue State at the federal level. Like, he's not talking enough, he's not making enough noise. With his position and power, the office of the SGF has, is supposed to be on top of things. But the SGF has now responded, accusing Benue Governor Hyacinth of attempting to manipulate public sentiments against Senator Akume by making deliberate and unfortunate insinuations.
We had somebody on the news hour, and we were asking him what he thought about it, and as far as he was concerned, they were both guilty. That, I mean, this was coming days after the chief of army staff had moved in. Perhaps they just kept their comments to themselves and allowed things to unfold instead of this war of words that has ensued over the last few days. Anyway, we're not going to talk too much about it because we have somebody in the studio who's going to tell us a whole lot more.
Yes, indeed. I mean, talking about that, remember the governor also said he had a report that had a list of names of people he thought, that were sponsoring violence as well. And hopefully, a lot of people have asked, where's the list?
Yeah.
Do we get to see it? But we'll be taking up the Benue State Insecurity and Politics with a former member, House of Representative, Honorable Gbillah. He represented Gbillah East, Gbillah West Federal Constituency. He's here with us in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Adora. Good morning, Oloyede. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you very much.
Okay, so what do we say is responsible for this war of words between the SGF and the government? Wouldn't it be just a lot more wiser for them to have just said nothing?
Okay, first of all, if you permit me just for a few seconds to commiserate and express my condolences to my people who are being killed in my village, in my community, in my state, and to commiserate also with the government and people of Benue State and other neighboring states like Plateau over the incessant killing of our people. And let us also commiserate and appreciate the members of the armed forces. We thank them for their service, who are laying down their lives to help protect our people. I believe we'll have some time to talk more about this. Now, let me say that the onus is on who accuses to prove. So I know the controversy about this, and I believe the handlers of the governor, and maybe it was out of his passion to try to express himself about the information he obtained. Otherwise, the time the governor chose to mention the issue, in my own opinion, was not the right time to have done so. He was asked about his feud with the SGF. I don't know if you have watched the interview, and that is when he chose to talk about the report and the lack of comments by the SGF regarding the killing of the people and how there's a report that has provided some evidence. So let us give him that benefit of the doubt. He is the chief security officer. He probably has some intelligence reports that we're not privy to or aware of, but we are placing a demand now on our governor to provide our people and the country with irrefutable evidence of those people that he said are sponsors, since he already has the information. Let it not be like in the Buhari administration, if you remember, there were some people who were identified as being sponsors of terrorism. And I would still allude to the fact that even the situation in our state is premeditated, and there are sponsors of that. I would admit to that. But categorically saying it is Abuja politicians and members of the National Assembly requires the burden of proof to be on the governor to provide that evidence. I personally will not want to believe that my colleagues in the National Assembly would be sponsoring the killing of their people. But like I said, I will not hold brief for anybody. So I think it is the governor's responsibility to prove, and he himself on that interview admitted that there was some sort of a disagreement between him and the SGF, not my words, his own words. So I want to also appeal to the governor, appeal to the SGF, that they should not allow their own personal squabbles to affect the security and the lives of our people. It might be that the governor is being distracted by this political battle, that he is not being able to focus adequately on the issue that is causing my people to not be able to sleep any longer, to not be able to farm and cater for themselves. So these are very serious issues that should not degenerate on the platter of political differences.
All right, so I quite like that you likened your opening remarks to expressing, you know, your condolences and also the pain in which you've seen your people go through as a result of these killings. Again, the political understanding of this statement may be lost on a lot of people, especially persons like the governor and the SGF. And you just said it clearly, it shouldn't be about political interest, but it is. And the question is, do they think this as a priority conversation to have now, considering the fact that people are being killed? Secondly, do you not think this is all about 2027? And ahead of that, where do we draw the line between politics and lives of the people of Benue State?
Precisely. You know, as I speak here now, my heart bleeds. We are in mourning in my community in Benue State, and I would like to let Mr. President, the international community, and the rest of the world know that we are in mourning. We are under siege. We are facing an existential threat, and we are, in our own opinion, at war. So this is not the time for political brickbats. This is the time, and I want to also appeal to my governor and to the SGF, this is the time to stand united together. I do not believe that it is just about 2027. If you also listen to the governor, he correctly, even though it is not an excuse, pointed out to the fact that these issues have lingered for some years, even before he assumed office. So there is a calculated attempt, which again the governor alluded to, by some quarters. And we remember, if you remember, there's an interview that the notorious Ghana granted to Charles Eruka on Channel Television, where he said some people actually were trying to pay him to champion the attack of certain states. He named them Benue, Plateau, Taraba, Nasarawa, and some areas. I'm sure you probably remember that. So that means there's a calculated attempt to attack and conquer and occupy our land, because that is what we see now. They come, they attack, they occupy our communities and drive our people out.
Into camps.
Yes, into IDP camps. So it is beyond 2027. Yes, obviously, for some people, they take the opportunity, which it is their right to freedom of expression, to also complain about what is going on. Because some of us also have waited in the last 2 years to give President Ahmed Bola Tinubu a chance, to give the governor a chance, to give those who were declared as representatives of their people a chance. But 2 years later, we cannot keep quiet anymore. We cannot watch as our people get killed daily. We have to speak out and champion their cause and point out the fact that nothing is being done to tackle this issue. And I believe that it is important we look at what the solutions are. There are solutions we believe are important to put in place. Recently, and just like your review panel was talking about, we too in my community, we too in Benue, think our lives are worth it. Why is Mr. President not able to come and visit us? I make bold to say that even in the course of the Niger Delta crisis, not as many people have been killed as have been killed in our constituency.
What does the office of the SGF have to do with this? Because the blame back and forth between the governor and the SGF. The governor is the chief security officer of the state.
Yes.
I mean, yes, the SGF is at the center. What is his role in all of this?
Well, I believe, without holding brief again for the governor, that the concern is he is the highest placed political office holder from Benue State. He is in the executive council of the government, And it is expected that he would be concerned about the plight of the people in the state. Now, in his response, the SGF, through his press person, mentioned the fact that he had been taking some actions under the radar, to intervene, which shows that he also understands the importance of him doing something about it. My own personal opinion, I think that we too would want to hear from him, the SGF. We too would want to see the efforts that he is also making, because he has the ear of Mr. President. That is what we believe, and he can point out to him what is going on. And I want to appeal to Mr. President, because there seems to be too much sycophancy in the country at the moment. If he wants to know the fact about what is going on in our communities, we are here to tell him. He needs to speak to us. That's why I'm calling on him to visit. The Chief of Army Staff came. The NSA came. We appreciate that. But for your information, they came and they stayed in the state capital. I'm sure you heard that the Chief of Army Staff relocated to Benue. Well, for your information, he did not relocate. Relocation means he moved some bags and some baggage to stay for a number of days, which is what we expected, because it is different when you physically visit those locations. We thought that as a seasoned military general, he would go and see how his troops are faring, the conditions under which we're operating. I'm saying that because I have heard the complaints about the lack of.
So what sort of relocation is actually happening?
Well, he did not relocate. He just visited that day. While we appreciate the visit of the Chief of Army Staff and the NSA, while we appreciate the fact that they went to the state capital to meet with the governor and our esteemed leaders, the Toti, the Chidoma, and the other traditional rulers, we believe that there should have been the effort to go to the location. It's different. I have been there. I recently had to bury my parents, and I know the contingent of armed personnel and vehicles that we had to take to go to my village because of the attacks that we're prone to every day. So we expect more, not just a visit to the state capital, but a visit to those locations to ascertain what is going on. Remember, the primary role of government is the security and the welfare of the people. So we're calling on the president. If we have 15 trillion to invest on Lagos-Calabar, a coastal highway, I wonder why it is not considered to be a priority to ensure that our people are not being killed. To some of us, we consider it not to be the priority for the investment of that amount of money, while they're commissioning 30 kilometers, about 5% of the project or so, our people are being killed.
Okay, Honorable, you said that the Chief of Army Staff's relocation is not exactly a relocation in the real sense of it. But we do hear reports that since he has touched down on Benue State, that there has been an appreciable military presence around there. I mean, the fact that they know that he's got his searchlight beamed on that area is beginning to generate a little bit more movement in terms of security personnel.
Yes, we appreciate the fact that, and this is part of what has been the issue between our community and the military. I'm sure recently you heard there was an uproar, a protest in Naka, the Gbillah local government area, where property was burnt, and I commiserate with those whose properties were burnt. And of course, I keep calling on my people to exercise restraint and observe the rule of law, even as we protest the incessant killing of our people. But one of the issues we have always had is the fact that we believe some of the military personnel who come to our communities are complicit in the killing of the people. The people have provided us sometimes with irrefutable evidence of seeing military personnel present at the locations, of being the ones who have been attacked by the military for trying to defend themselves. So it is important that the Chief of Army Staff replace all the officers and the personnel that are there now. It is important, which is part of the solutions, that we believe should be in place as an immediate intervention, that a proper military formation be placed in these locations, not just across my local government, across the state, other states in Plateau. These are things that in the rules of engagement in the military are very capable military who have done tremendously in Liberia and other locations. You can see that even in the US, when they want to intervene in the Gulf area or somewhere, they have a camp, they look for a country to locate themselves in close proximity. So I wonder why our military tacticians don't realize it is time to deploy that kind of a camp and the formation to that location to provide that intervention. So we're happy that they are seemingly providing more people, but the question to ask is it just to provide the people who stay in one location? Are they not able to go after these people? That is the question. Don't we have the equipment? That is why I complain about 15 trillion for a coastal road when the people are being killed. Can't we invest in modern equipment? There are drones that even are payload carrying drones. There are equipment that can be deployed to pursue these people. I can tell you for free right now, in Loco, a bordering town between my village and Nassau local government, is where these people come in from across. Is my governor engaging with his counterpart in Nassau State? Why don't we hear about attacks in Nassau State? Because they are very comfortable. That is what it appears like.
Who's comfortable? Who?
The headsmen
okay.
that come in and kill our people. They are giving solace. Why we believe that we are being attacked is even in Nasarawa State, there has been an allegation, and the case is even in court, by my people in Nasarawa State, that their lands are being taken by the government. Meanwhile, these headsmen are occupying land in that area from where they come in to attack our people. Is the military not aware of this? There are allegations that those of a particular ethnicity who are sympathetic to the cause of the headsmen are looking the other way when they're coming to attack our people. We want to make it clear that we are the leaders of our people who have been asking them to exercise restraint. Nigeria should not forget that we are still the land of warriors. The people who stopped the jihad from entering to the other parts of the country, the people who stopped the civil war, we have not forgotten that. Or should we make our land ungovernable like the South, like the Niger Delta, before the president will pay attention? We are capable of doing that.
But I know that you won't respond
to
that.
We will not do that. You said something about going after these people rather than the military coming and just staying in one location and just doing analysis here and there. That they should actually have a deliberate effort at going after these people and be on the offensive. But then, I mean, do we really understand the people that we are up against? How much do we really? You just mentioned a few things. I mean, the privileged information you have, and perhaps how many people have that privileged information? Because they probably would need information like that if what you're suggesting is to be done to actually go after them, so they know who they're going after. For example, in the northeast and the northwest, we hear that they're going after them, and they actually know who they're going after. There are deliberate targets, and they're doing that. Is that possible with what's happening in Benue State?
It is very possible. I'm sure you have heard instances where people have been kidnapped and the security operatives quickly sweep in and identify and apprehend these people. When there's such movement of the magnitude that occurs when they come and they attack our people, sometimes they come with motorbikes, sometimes they are on foot, but with the exchange of gunfire and the movement of those people, that is why we are wondering whether there's complicity in this whole attack on our people. We believe that our armed forces should have the equipment to be able to track and not be reactive, but be proactive. Like I said, there are areas where if Mr. President gives us the opportunity, we will show them where our people have tracked them, where they are. Is the military unaware of this? A reverend father was killed in front of a military checkpoint on the way to Naka in Gwe West local government area. This is how bad the situation is. So you start to wonder, are they all sitting in one place? This is the challenge we have, and that's why there's a clarion call for self-defense. And I want to appeal to the National Assembly, to Mr. President, to realize these are the kind of things we should be seeking constitutional review about. Our criminal and penal code, of course, provides for that at the moment, and it makes clear that you are allowed to use proportionate force. So if your enemies are coming with AK-47, you will respond with AK-47. That is what the penal code provides at the moment. So we are raising this notice to those who think they can kill us. We have a right to defend ourselves. The time has come now to rise up. Enough is enough. We have kept quiet for too long, and we believe that we are being taken for granted. So it is important that there are strategies even Mr. President can put in place. If Tantita can be given the opportunity to secure pipelines, I guess the pipelines are more important than our lives. We too have the capacity to be the Tantita in our regions. These are solutions that are beginning to provide to this solution.
Just to come in here, because this is where I wanted to jump in when you were talking earlier before I cut into you, succinctly, and you're talking about the fact that the president should realize we're warriors, you have the strength and might, and, perhaps the inroads that show past histories of what you've been able to do. And I get it, and I get the pain, I get the pressure. And, for a state that was dubbed and hailed as the food basket of the nation,
Precisely.
now all you see is, a siege, people under siege, and a deathbed of dreams, and I do understand that. But let's look at the internal displacement of people. I know that between the year 2021, where they had over 650,000, now we have over a million, 1.5 million people in 2022 alone. Isn't that a danger in itself? What is the government looking inwards to do about that? Because when you speak to people, even in the IDP camp, they're still not safe. They still don't feel protected.
Precisely.
Yes.
Precisely. That is very correct, Adora. Because recently, in the last attacks, the local government headquarters, Naka, itself was attacked. And this is one of the locations where the IDPs are taking refuge. So you can imagine, even where the IDP camps are now being attacked. So, while we appreciate the efforts of the state government in providing some level of succor to the IDP camps, to those who are in IDP camps, it is important to point out that in our culture, most of the people who are affected do not want to go to an IDP camp. They sort of find their way within the community with their relatives and friends. So there are a lot of them who are in that situation. And even those who are in IDP camps are still complaining about the lack of intervention, the lack of facilities for them. And this is where we still call upon the federal government, because they still have a lot more resources to be able to use to intervene in the situation. NEMA has done some intervention. I hear the UN has done some intervention, but this is one-off. If you remember, at some point, the federal government was providing monthly intervention to the IDPs in Borno State. That is the kind of intervention that we desire and we demand. And if you remember, the previous administration promised 10 billion naira intervention for IDPs for their well-being and resettlement. We have not heard about that amount. We had hope that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he comes into power, would implement that intervention, or would at least investigate the whereabouts of those funds. And as I speak to date, nobody knows where that 10 billion naira is. There has been no intervention. So, rightfully so too, like you pointed out, the case of the IDPs is a very, very serious issue at the moment. They are in dire need of help, dire need of intervention, and it is something that we believe the federal government needs to do something about with a sense of urgency.
It's a bit worrisome when you say that 10 billion.
10 billion.
10 billion naira, yes.
And you said nobody knows where it is.
Yes.
Sounds frightening.
Well, this is part of why we should hold our executive accountable This is why we expect the National Assembly to do the needful and investigate such occurrences. This was a pronouncement made by the then Vice President Osibajo when he visited Benue State, that this amount had been allocated for intervention. That money, like they say in our local parlance, entered voicemail.
Maybe that's where the SGF steps in to sort of follow the money and track the funding and the kind of interventions that come.
Well, yes, so I believe that that's the kind of thing that we would appreciate if he follows up on, because we have not, in the 2 years of this government, seen or heard anything about the money that was supposed to be allocated for the IDPs. And like I was talking about solutions, we need to begin to seriously consider how to do things differently. You can't keep doing something the same way and you expect a different result. It is important now for the government to explore training our people in our localities under the army. They can be engaged in the army but deployed strictly in those areas and provided with the necessary resources to begin to provide the first line of defense and go after these people. I've heard in the military circles they claim that foreigners are attacking us. Doesn't that show that we're at war? That means we're at war, and then we're sitting back and letting people infiltrate our sovereignty as a nation. Have you heard that even in very high level confidential briefings at the security infrastructure in the country, the news leaks to these people? These are concerns that we have, and we believe that something seriously needs to be done about this.
I want to take a cue from the last two things you said. You've talked about your people being warriors. And if you decide to go back to this warrior stuff, things could be made a little bit more difficult for these people that are troubling you. And we had somebody on the program last week that said that, look, instead of throwing your hands up in the air, perhaps you should start to do things like that without necessarily being, dramatically confrontational. Don't you think that with Governor Alia'S should probably use that warrior mentality within you to, set up things that can make life a little miserable for these guys that are giving you these horrors?
Well, yes, that's why I talked about the fact that currently in our penal and criminal codes, the right to self-defense is sacrosanct. And the Director General, the DG of the DSS himself, if you remember, recently talked about the fact that our communities need to start to defend themselves, that he even provides support to his own community to avoid such incidents. And the governor himself agreed during his interview that it was necessary for us to defend ourselves. And that is where we will still need the support of the federal government as well. Like I mentioned, if the federal government can be supporting Tantita, then they need to realize that we can also provide that kind of service in our own area to provide the succor and the protection that our people need.
All right, thank you so much.
We just need the cooperation of the security agencies not to make us the target when there are people who we're defending ourselves against. And we will not go against the rule of law. We will rise up to make sure we defend the lives of our people.
Honorable Mark, I think this is a good place to just, take this and let the presidency and, of course, the state governor listen, because you said and told him, provide the list of the report and the name so that we can get to work. And, of course, support from the executive has been mentioned.
So much to be our searchlight on in the days ahead.
All right, thank you so much. We've been speaking to Honorable Mark Gbillah. He represented Square West Federal Constituency. He's brought us insight and sort of, an analysis of really what the issues are in Benue State. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much indeed, Honorable, for coming on the program. Right, it's a couple of minutes past the second hour of the Tuesday edition of